This is in the cemetery at Silverton, Texas.
Lavinia Stokes is my great-grandmother. She was my grandmother's mother. They came here from Kentucky, and they came right after the Civil War, sometime to maybe the year after or during, and they came out to Wise County, Texas, and settled there. And then they came on over here to West Texas and lived here the rest of their lives. Okay, this is my great-grandfather. He is the father of my grandmother, my mother's mother.
That's okay. I'm using you for a stand.
And he owned a plantation in Kentucky. He was a devout Christian man. He also was a devout Catholic. I mean, why did I say Catholic? He was a devout Presbyterian, and he was also a devout Mason. So, thus the Masonic headstone. There's Sister Kate, they called her. She was an artist. And I thought this surprises me, I thought she was an old maid, but she is not. She was the wife of a C.B. Hill, and I'll have to look into the history of Mr. Hill, because I don't know. But this lady was an artist, and she lived with her parents, evidently for many years, because when when Mama and the kids would come out here, well, Aunt Kate was here. His name was Warner, and he was killed in a stampede, a cattle stampede. He and another friend, who lies beside him here, and they brought them into Silverton in a wagon, and it took them 2-3 days to get them here, and they were interred here. They were the first ones in this family plot, and his friend is beside him.
Let's see if I can get this friend.
These two stones, you can focus on each one of them if you want. This one's my Uncle Bob, and somewhere in the family there is the name Hutchinson, but I don't know what the relationship is, but that is a family name. And that's my Uncle Bob Reed, and this is my Uncle George Reed on this side. Now those are great uncles. That's my mother's uncles. 1877 and 2/25/1973. That'll be it. Five, 15, 62. Now, Walter, I don't know who these are. I'm gonna have to look up the story. The thing is that, you see, in 1862, this guy was born. So was he my great-grandfather's brother? He could have been. Or he could have been Mama's brother, because she was born in 1859, I think. So it could have been her brother. I don't know. I don't know who it is, but we'll certainly find out. January 27th, 1983. And now, Warner is in here somewhere. Okay, this is my mother's first cousin, Warner Reed, and he and the other gentleman, Ted Reed, that we took pictures of before, were at Mama's and Daddy's house the day Uncle Mose died, which was Valentine's Day. And they had come by to visit with him. And Uncle Mose passed away just shortly after they were there. And they were good friends. Warner and Ted were at all of my parents' funerals. And Uncle Mose. This is their daughter. They called her Betty Sue. That's all I know about her. I don't know who it is.
This is in the Buffalo Springs Cemetery.
Today is June 20th, 1979. It's the first day that I have seen the grave of my great-grandmother, my grandfather Cheshire's mother. Her name was Susan Woodruff Cheshire, and she was born March 11, 1817, and she was born, we think, in Arkansas. And she migrated over into Texas and was one of the pioneers of Texas. Actually, one of the 300 came with Austin. And she died April 15th, 1901. This is my great-grandmother. I think that this is the daughter of Lemuel Cheshire, who was named after my grandfather, which would make her, I don't know anything about cousins, so I don't know whether they're second or third or whatever, but at any rate, that she was the daughter of, and she was only 7 months old when she died. Her name was Arlene. This is my great-uncle George W Cheshire, and he must have been a fine person. Actually, he was 10 years older than my grandfather, or thereabouts, somewhere in that area, and he worked for the cattle trails and got my grandfather his first job on a cattle trail. Now, the story was told that my grandfather was 9. Now, I've heard that he was 13. I don't know. He was very young when he went on his first cattle drive. And Uncle George was the head drover of the, I guess you'd call him trail boss. That's what he was. And it says here, he said he died as he lived, a Christian. I'm glad to know that.
Date. Okay.
I'm glad to know that, because the thing is that his grandfather was a preacher. He was a Baptist preacher, and so the thing is, it's nice to know, because I never hear anything about that in the family, whether or not they were Christians. And it says here that he was. I'm glad for that. He must his Uncle George's wife. I don't know what her name was. I think this is Barbara's great-grandmother. And I'm saying that this lady must have been a real nice, wonderful person too, because she took care of her mother-in-law. Those are not easy things, and I admire her a great deal.
The Senior Citizen Center in Bowie, Texas. I'll put the date in so we'll have the date.
And it was for Stephen Cheshire. And I saw the address on it was David Cheshire in Oklahoma. So I called directory assistance and I asked him, I said, do you know who I am? Well, of course he didn't. But in the long run, I got hold of Tiny and Theresa, and all of this came about, and we went last year and met these people, and it was like being at home. It was being around people like we've known them for all our life. We were comfortable, we were accepted, and we just felt good. We had a good time, and we appreciated y'all inviting us. So now we decided to turn the favor and invite them down here. We want to give you a little bit of an idea of how we all came to be related. In a roundabout way, we all have the same relatives. John Woodruff came into Texas with his family in 1832 with the second Stephen Austin expedition. And with them came a daughter named Susan. And she met and married Thomas Cheshire. He had come into Texas with a land grant from Mexico somewhere around 1839. And they met and married, and they had children. And George Woodruff was the oldest, which is where most of us come from. Then they had a son that was called Joe Hampton, and most of you knew him as Uncle Joe. He lived with my grandmother and granddad, Robert and Etta Cheshire, our parents. And he did have a wife and family, but for some reason they did not live together. Then there was another son named William H., which William is also a family name, and there's lots of Williams here today. He died as a young man of about 18. Then there was a daughter named Susan Rebecca, and I know her children's names, but I've never been able to find any of them, and I hope to do that someday. They live somewhere in Lyme. Then there was Alvin Lemuel, and Alvin Lemuel and George were together in the Aurora, Wise County area. think probably that between Theresa and I, we've uncovered enough information that we think that George was here first and then Alvin came with his mother. And they worked for Dan Wagner. And I do know that they went the Chisholm Trail to Kansas at least one on a cattle drive. And for some reason, after a period of years, George moved to Buffalo Springs and out in that area and settled. And Alvin Lineal moved his family toward Wichita Falls and on that way. And I'm not even going to touch on them because I'm going to let Theresa do that. George had the first wife that died. They had 3 children, and which was Aunt Josie and the one that we call Uncle Will. And their people are out around Littleton. And Josie's people are mostly, pardon me, in the Henrietta, Clay County area. And then they had Robert Henry, George and Mary Virginia had Robert Henry, who was my grandfather. They had a lot of kids. They had a lot of kids. And then there were other children that Father followed. There was Aunt Ruth and Aunt Eunice, and some of Aunt Eunice's kids are supposed to be here. They're not here yet, but I do know that Aunt Ruth's sons are here. And Uncle Em and Uncle Em's son and granddaughter is here. Miss Myrtle. And Myrtle's 2 sons are here. No, his 1 son is here. Richard is here. Richard Timms is here. And we have all spread to the here and the yon and multiplied and divided and left, but somehow our roots all come back to the same area. The majority of the Cheshires are buried in Buffalo and in Henrietta. There's a lot of them in Henrietta. I mean in Bellevue. Susan is buried in Buffalo. She died in 1901, and she was the 2nd person buried in the cemetery at Buffalo Springs. The first one was a little girl that was killed in an Indian raid. Thomas died in the Civil War at Sabine Pass in 1863, and his body was never found. It was just listed among the missing. But Susan had a letter from someone in the captain or someone in that regiment and told him that he had been really ill before the battle with pneumonia. And after the battle, he was not found. So if he was taken as a prisoner, his name was lost in the paperwork somewhere. He was never found. And she had applied, Susan had applied for widow's pension and had received it from the state. Other than that, we're just all kind of around here, but that's how we all came to be. We came from Susan and Thomas. So we all have a mutual great, depending on which branch you fall in. So, and I'm going to turn it over to Theresa Pinkett now. Theresa is a lady that I met through genealogy, and she's a wonderful person. I love her to death. So I've adopted her as a sister because I only have 5, so I need some more. But I really do love Theresa and Walter, and they've been by and visited, and it's just been wonderful. And one thing before I get to Theresa, I need to say one word of thanks to my daughter, because I guarantee you, without her, this wouldn't be. I'm a great planner, but not a good carrier out, and she did all the hard work.
Cheshire boys, okay? And Uncle George, according to the records and everything, which is a lot of your great-grandfather and great-great-grandfather, but at any rate, he took our grandfather so I'm sure that your great-grandfather or great-great-grandfather considered that this little boy was his responsibility. And we certainly appreciate that because our grandfather then went on to do many other things. Our grandparents had 6 children. Actually, they had 7 children. One passed away. But they had Uncle Marshall. He had 2 sons, and then they had Uncle Bill, and he had 3 daughters and 3 sons, and they're all in Texas. And Uncle Lem had 2 sons, and they were in Texas, and then their sons have moved, one to California and one is back in New Mexico, where he belongs. Okay, and little Lem, are you here?
I don't think they've got
They're not
back
here
yet.
yet? Okay. But they will be, okay? They are in town. And then my mom, and there was 3 daughters and 1 son. And then Uncle Mose had no children. And then Uncle Aubrey had 8 children, 5 girls and 3 boys. And we were close. All of us were close. We were friends. They came out to New Mexico and stayed at the ranch, and we went to Oklahoma to see them, and we came to Texas to see them, and so we, as I say, here all these years, we didn't know we were lost. I'm sure that we were. So all these people were born. All these uncles and aunts were born in Texas. My uncle Marshall and the oldest child who passed away was born in Aurora, and then Uncle Bill was in Seymour, and Uncle Lem in Seymour, my mom in Seymour, Uncle Mose in Seymour, and Uncle Aubrey in Wichita Falls. So you see, it's all stayed around here. Then in 1903, they moved to New Mexico, and there they stayed, and all of us stayed there. Most of us stayed there, and they lived in West Texas for all those years. And then when World War I broke out, well then Uncle Aubrey went to Oklahoma, and of course he married Aunt Blanche there, and they raised their family there. Uncle Mose came back to New Mexico and lived with us, and then, but it was the thing is, what I'm saying is that we really got out there and just got so busy making it living that they lost track of kinfolks. And that's where we are. So now that we are so fortunate that we don't have to work that hard anymore, we can look at our kinfolks that we have to know you, okay? And Papa worked as a cattle inspector, a brand inspector for the cattle ranches of Texas. Even after he went to New Mexico. He was, from what we can understand, he was an undercover agent for the Cattle Growers Association, because they kept coming over. New Mexico was a territory, remember, and they could take the cattle over there, and then they could change the brands and move them back to Texas and sell them. And he was there as an inspector, and we're proud of him. And I just want you to know it's so nice to know all of you, and we appreciate being input into this. And I know that all my close kin glad to be here too, because we wouldn't be here in such force.
through. That's okay. Look pretty.
That's probably the best one I've been.
You ready?
This is the grave of Alvin Lemuel V, 1859, and he died April 26, 1917, 5 years after Nanny Cunningham, Reed Cheshire, his first wife, passed away. He was known as Lem Cheshire in the state of New Mexico, also Texas, and he came here in 1903 into New Mexico.
Hold it.
Okay, he is the grandfather of mine, and he was well known in the state of New Mexico and in the state of Texas. He was the baby of the Cheshire family. Our grandmother, Nanny Cunningham Reed Cheshire, she was born in October of 1861 and died in 1912. And she moved with him everywhere. She came from Kentucky originally. He was a Texan, but she came from Kentucky and met him and was married, and they had their family and moved all over West Texas and New Mexico. Now, at the very first of this tape, I'd like to make a correction. I had mentioned that our grandmother Susan great-grandmother Susan had lived with her son George, which in fact she did not. She lived with her daughter, and her daughter cared for her in her elderly years. And I'd like to make that correction in this tape. From downtown Portales, you can reach this cemetery by catching 3rd Street and coming east. The cemetery has many trees, and you can locate it there. And then when you come into the gate off of 3rd Street, you take a quick right hand and come down about 1, 2, 3, probably 3 or 4 trees, and you will find this grave site.